Welcome to Wallace on Wire. Today we're talking about Dato Teng Chang Khim's strong views on a recent corporate controversy that really set the political wires humming.
Humming is putting it mildly. It felt more like a jolt, didn't it? A very public clash, really highlighting that tension when global business norms meet, well, domestic cultural expectations.
Yeah, exactly. We saw Formula One, this huge international thing, run right into the political sensitivities surrounding a national oil company.
That's the heart of it.
So let's get into the specific incident. We're talking about the president and group CEO of the national oil company, Dato Tengku Muhammad Taufik. He was seen, globally, on TV.
Right there on the podium.
Participating in that champagne spraying ceremony. The Formula One Singapore Grand Prix podium celebration. Very visible.
And look, for a global sponsor like the National Oil Company, that's almost expected, isn't it? The back-winning teams, F1 is huge for them. The CEO being up there, it's part of the deal, you could say. A corporate duty, almost.
But that duty immediately sparked this firestorm back home.
It really did. It forced this big conversation very quickly about what's okay and what's not for a leader of a government-linked company, especially when they're operating internationally.
The moment those images surfaced, the political criticism was, well, instant. We probably need to start there with the critics' view, because that really framed the whole debate, didn't it?
Absolutely. You had figures like Harris Idaham Rashid, the information chief of Parti Pribumi Bersatu Malaysia Youth Wing, weighing in very quickly.
And his criticism wasn't exactly subtle.
Not at all. He basically called the CEO's involvement completely unsuitable for someone in his position. Straight up.
And the details he pointed to were quite specific, weren't they? It wasn't just about being present.
No. The point made was that the CEO reportedly didn't seem to avoid the spraying and ended up completely soaked in champagne.
Which, to the critics, signaled he was fully participating, willingly, not just caught in the crossfire.
Right. And Harris Idaham Rashid's argument really centered on this idea of a double standard and, importantly, tarnishing the national image.
He emphasized the CEO being a Malay Muslim corporate leader heading a major national institution.
An institution that carries the nation's brand, essentially. The expectation from that perspective was for conduct reflecting the majority culture, very high standards.
So the core complaint really boils down to the singleism, doesn't it? You're on the world stage, yes, but you need to embody domestic religious norms. Getting covered in alcohol, even if not consumed, was seen as unsuitable.
Deeply unsuitable. And the accusation followed that this action damaged the country's reputation internationally. Set a poor example.
It really throws a spotlight on that tightrope these leaders walk.
Definitely. On one side, project this modern global image for a company sponsoring a very visible, very glamorous sport.
And on the other, act as a cultural representative, where every move is watched through this very specific domestic lens.
It's a huge amount of pressure. I mean, you're leading this massive national oil company operating globally. You're expected to fit into international corporate norms.
Which, in F1, means celebrating with your winning team. You, listening to this, have to understand, he was arguably just doing his job as a global CEO in that moment.
That's the context the critics tend to gloss over, perhaps. But the political reality here, as we saw, often means the domestic view trumps the global one.
So the critics basically say, look, if you can't be on that podium without compromising our standards, maybe you shouldn't be there, or the company shouldn't be involved.
Or find a way to duck out gracefully, I suppose. It's a really tough position.
It is. But this is exactly where Dato Teng Chang Khim's jumped in with a defense that honestly shifted the whole conversation.
It really did. He took it from cultural sensitivity to, well, legal and philosophical ground.
His defense was very direct, very robust.
Extremely. His main point was simple logic.
Yeah.
The actual religious prohibition is about drinking alcohol, right? Consumption.
Right.
Since the CEO himself confirmed he didn't drink any, it was just sprayed on him as part of this, global tradition, then technically no transgression occurred.
And
Therefore, there was absolutely no need for an apology. Dato Teng Chang Khim basically argued that apologizing when no actual wrong was committed just gives weight to an overly sensitive, politically driven interpretation.
So he wasn't just defending the CEO, he was kind of critiquing the whole discourse around sensitivity, wasn't he?
Exactly. He pointed out, look, the National Oil Company sponsors F1. It's an international event full of different cultures.
He said the champagne spray isn't a Malaysian thing, obviously, but it's this ingrained motorsports tradition. It's just what happens.
And demanding that it change for one person or that the CEO should somehow vanish from the podium at that moment, shows a misunderstanding of how you engage in a multicultural world.
That's where his argument got broader, right? Beyond just F1, it became about globalization.
Yeah, he basically said if we get so sensitive about symbolic things, about mere proximity, without clear limits, where does it end? Do we risk cutting ourselves off?
His point was pretty sharp. If this level of sensitivity holds, then logically, maybe Malaysia should stop participating in any international activity where people from different backgrounds do things differently.
It's a provocative question, isn't it? Where do you actually draw that line?
And he pushed it further with that slippery slope idea, questioning the very definition of disrespect in a global context.
He did. He essentially asked everyone to think about the downstream effects. Are we really saying high-ranking officials, diplomats at the UN, people at embassies abroad, should they be barred from attending any function, like a state dinner, just because alcohol might be served to other people at other tables?
Wow, that's a direct challenge.
Yeah.
If getting splashed is a scandal, what about just being present where others are drinking? It shifts the focus from personal action to enforced separation.
It forces you to confront the idea that global participation needs some level of maybe tolerance for other cultures' norms.
Teng Chang Khim's argument was that limiting engagement based on the mere presence of something non-prohibited is just not sustainable for a country wanting global influence.
So you end up with these two completely different ways of looking at the world. One demands strict adherence to domestic standards everywhere, always.
And the other advocates for tolerance and focusing only on the actual prohibited act consumption, not just being nearby.
And this whole clash played out right in the spotlight of corporate leadership.
Which brings us to that crucial next step. Despite Teng Chang Khim's very strong defense, the CEO, Tan Sri Tengku Muhammad Taufik,
He did apologize.
he did. And that apology really speaks volumes about the political pressure, doesn't it? He confirmed again, I didn't drink, but he still apologized publicly. He acknowledged the political heat.
What was his stated reason?
He said that as a Muslim, he should have been more aware, more conscious of the sensitivities around participating in that kind of celebration. It wasn't quite admitting fault in the act itself, but acknowledging the political fallout, the perception.
That apology is really telling, isn't it? It shows the kind of intense scrutiny leaders of major Malaysian institutions are under. Heading a GLC means your actions are never just corporate. They're inherently political. In this case, the company's global image, its corporate duty, it clearly had to take a back seat to the domestic political reaction.
It demonstrates how powerful symbolism can be in this environment. The image being wet with champagne carried more political weight than the technicality of whether he actually drank it.
It seems the apology was maybe an attempt to manage that perception, try and put the issue to rest, even if it kind of weakened his own factual defense.
It's that classic balancing act, isn't it? Multinational corporate image versus domestic cultural expectations.
And when that line gets crossed, even just symbolically, the pressure on the individual leader can become immense. Too much to push back against, perhaps.
So you listening right now, you should really think about that tightrope. Malaysian leaders on the international stage, they're expected to be world-class executives, but also constantly judged by very specific domestic political standards.
This specific incident might fade, but the underlying question it raises won't. How does a globally active nation define the limits of sensitivity?
It really lays bare that fundamental disagreement. Should the world adapt to our sensitivities, or do we tolerate global norms as long as they don't involve actual transgressions of faith?
That's the big question this leaves us with, I think. A challenge for corporate leaders, and perhaps for the country as a whole, in today's political climate.
Indeed. A lot to think about there.
Definitely.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.